From Enigma to Disaster. Olavo de Carvalho, Diário do Comércio, June 4, 2014. Historians of the future, there is a future, may provide the solution to the greatest political enigma of all time. For now, everything is fog, an unanswered question. A man who came from nowhere, who never held a stable job, who paid for his education at the most expensive universities with money from a mysterious source, who changed his name at least 4 times, who never presented a single valid identity document, but produced at least 3 forged ones, who has a life story filled with suspicious episodes, and spent years in close company with gangsters and terrorists, one day was elected senator from Illinois. After only a few months of political experience, if one can even call frequent absences from most sessions experience, he was catapulted to the presidency of the most powerful nation on earth, to the applause of the masses. He inspired a messianic wave of hope in hundreds of millions of voters, a phenomenon unseen since Lenin, Mussolini, Stalin, Hitler, and Mao Zedong. After 6 years of an indescribably disastrous administration, he remains in office, an impassive colossus, immune from any attempt to investigate the dark corners of his biography, without being branded every slur in the book by the country's major newspapers and the elite of both the Democratic and Republican parties. Apparently, the most unavoidable duty of the modern American voter is to allow themselves to be governed without ever questioning by whom, pretending that everything is perfectly normal. Once convinced to accept this situation under penalty of being labeled a public enemy, the citizen is ready to silently and submissively accept any decision that comes from the government, no matter how absurd, immoral, or unconstitutional. The latest outrage was the incredible exchange of 5 of the most dangerous Taliban leaders for 1 deserter soldier, without consulting the Senate, of course, adding insult to injury. But before that, the president's list of crimes had already surpassed the darkest dystopian speculations. He doubled the national debt he promised to reduce, dismantled the healthcare system only to replace it with the monumental fraud of Obamacare, pressured religious hospitals to perform abortions, delivered weapons to Mexican drug traffickers and Syrian terrorists, funneled state money into bankrupt companies of his friends and campaign contributors, devalued the dollar, destroyed diplomatic relations with Israel, delivered countless speeches blaming America for everything bad in the world, held dozens of secret meetings with members of the Muslim Brotherhood, used the IRS to persecute political enemies, established a monstrous domestic surveillance system to blackmail journalists, incited racial hatred whenever possible, armed civilian police with military gear to terrorize unarmed citizens, ended American leadership in the world, refused aid to an ambassador besieged by terrorists, and after his assassination, tried to deceive the entire nation with a ridiculous story about a YouTube video being responsible. In the meantime, he took more vacations, threw more parties, and played more rounds of golf than any of his predecessors, while systematically skipping his daily intelligence briefing. In her spare time, his wife engaged in a highly humanitarian campaign to make children eat more turnips and fewer French fries, angering the entire nation's youth. The sheer volume and maliciousness of these actions, interrupted here and there by obscene trivialities, is so relentless and consistent that any attempt to explain it away as mere incompetence defies even the smallest sense of plausibility. As Eileen F. Toplansky wrote in the latest issue of American Thinker, this man is not a failure, he's a success. A success in a cold, calculated enterprise of national destruction. If, despite all of this, he remains shielded and untouchable, it is because the Constitution and laws have been effectively disabled, replaced by a new principle of order. The authority of the mainstream media, bolstered by the intimidation tactics of a vast network of collaborators willing to do anything, and supported by billionaire corporations with a vested interest in removing the U.S. from the path of global governance. The American system, in short, is no longer the same, and the restoration of the old, if possible, will take decades. The work of devastation has gone far beyond its immediate political effects. It has changed the entire landscape of American self-consciousness, turning the great power into a sick, crippled country, incapable of responding to even the most brutal psychological assaults, incapable even of feeling scandalized. Barack Hussein Obama's presidency is the most disastrous event that has ever befallen the United States since the bombing of Pearl Harbor.